most of you may know if you've been watching this channel for a while, something I really enjoy is listening to podcasts. And I have a recommendation for you. Earlier this year, I discovered a podcast called Comfort Blanket. Now, it does exactly what it says on the tin. It's a podcast hosted by Joel Morris, and he has a guest come on and they talk about a piece of media that acts as their personal comfort blanket. It can be a book that they absolutely love reading over and over, a film that they've watched so many times they practically know every word to the script, a TV show that they re-binge every now and then, or I think you're even allowed to choose an album that you just put on and drift away to. I love this concept for a podcast because sometimes I'll listen to it and they'll be talking about a film that I sort of know a little bit, but I don't know super well, I haven't seen for years, and the person talking about it will talk with so much passion and enthusiasm that I end up watching the film that night. And I find things in it that I'd never noticed before. And it's even better when a guest comes on and talks about something you really, really love. For example, one of my most favourite recent episodes from I think earlier this year was somebody coming on and talking about how much she loves the film It's a Wonderful Life. I adore that film. It makes me weep. It's beautiful, and listening to someone else say why it feels so special to them reminded me of why it's so special to me.
What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down. Hey, that's a pretty good idea. I'll give you the moon, Barry.
I'll take it.
So yes, that is my podcast recommendation. Check out Comfort Blanket. And it really inspired me and made me think I would like to do a video about my comfort blanket. If I was famous enough to be invited on a podcast, that specific podcast, what would I talk about? What's my comfort blanket? Unfortunately, I've got a very busy brain and I couldn't narrow it down to just one thing, so I decided to pick one of each because I'm not a celebrity and I'm not going to be invited onto the actual podcast, so I make my own rules. So I'm going to share with you a film, a TV show, a book, and an album that act as my personal comfort blankets. Was it hard to pick just one from each category? Surprisingly, no. I just went with my gut, and my gut said this. I've told this story before on this channel, so I'm not going to loiter on it for too long, but I first saw the film Beaches when I believe I was 11 years old. My grandparents had come to stay. We started watching it and then it got to my bedtime and I had to go upstairs to bed, and so did my younger sister, and we had a television in her room. My grandparents were staying in my room, and I was like, shall we put it on quietly and watch the rest of the film? Now, massive spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Beaches, it's really sad. One of the main characters dies. We watched the rest of the film, bawled our eyes out at the point at which she dies, and were like, we need comfort from our parents and grandparents. So we went downstairs and literally my mum, my dad, my nan and my granddad were all just devastated. We all just sat around and watched the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the film and just cried. Good times. I've been obsessed with that film ever since. I was talking to Leslie about this when I had COVID. I felt like I needed a comfort blanket. I felt really poorly and I wanted something that was just going to be comforting. And as weird as this is going to sound, for me, a film or piece of media that makes me cry is really comforting. I'm a strange human. I think it's because, if you want me to be slightly dark for a moment, the real world has plenty of stuff that can be upsetting and depressing and stressful. So when you cry at something fictional, it's like, you're letting go of everything you keep in all the time, and you're not crying over stuff happening in your own life. You're crying because a fictional person has died, or because you don't know if the character you really like is going to make it. It's like a different form of emotion. And for me, it just works. It just sort of lets out all the negativity in a sort of nice, healthy way. And I'm not dwelling on the bad stuff that's happening in real life. But back to beaches. When I was 11, I was very determined that when I was older, I wanted to be in musical theatre. So the character of CC Bloom, who as a kid is like this wannabe child star, kind of hit on a personal level. And I taught myself to sing The Glory of Love a la Child CC. I would literally go around my bedroom just, "My mama told me that's the glory of love."
You gotta give a little, take a little, and let your poor heart break a little. That's the story of, that's the glory of love. Oh yeah!
I just love the film though. It's essentially at its heart a film about two girls who meet on a beach when they're kids. They're from completely different backgrounds, but they form this friendship that lasts into their adulthood. They're pen pals for years, and then they meet up again in person and they move in together and they have this life that's like them against the world until Hillary discovers she has viral cardiomyopathy. Yeah, I know the name of the illness because it's etched onto my brain. And again, even though it's really sad and I know it's coming, and it gets to the bit where she collapses at home, and by this point she's got a daughter and her daughter's like, "Mommy, get up, I don't know what to do!" And I'm like, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god, oh god. I still kind of love it. Like, I know what's going to happen. I know Bette Midler's going to rush to the hospital. Hillary's going to say the words that absolutely break me.
I waited for you.
And then they're going to go to the beach and I'm going to hear that, oh, Wind Beneath My Wings is going to come on and I'm going to bawl my eyes out.
Who do I speak to about getting Hillary Whitney released?
Do you know how sick she is?
Yes, I know how sick she is, and so does she. She wants to go.
I don't think we can let her go.
I have to talk to the doctor in charge. That's really...
But I love it.
A beautiful face without a name for so long. A beautiful smile to hide the pain. Did you ever know that you're my hero? And everything I would like to be.
I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes I enjoy a good emotional letting, you know? Beaches always works for me. There are bits that I find funny. There are bits that are dated. It was made in the 80s. There are things that have aged badly. But it's my favourite film of all time. I love it so much. And I can quote large chunks of dialogue. And do frequently.
Be sure to keep in touch, Cece, okay?
Well, sure. We're friends, aren't we?
But enough of films. Let's talk TV shows. As I mentioned, when I was a kid, I wanted to be in musical theatre. And it's one of my great loves of my life. I love musicals. I love the idea of just randomly bursting into song. So when this TV show came out that was essentially a musical comedy with this very feminist principle, yes, in spite of the name sounding slightly misogynistic, it turns all those ideas on its head. I was sold. And I hadn't actually watched it until my sister and Kim were visiting and they showed me the song I'm So Good at Yoga.
Look at me, I'm so good at yoga. Look at me, I'm so good at yoga. Exhale on another side, Rebecca sucks.
And also the song Face Your Fears.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get it.
If a bear runs at you in the woods, don't run away.
Yeah, I'm back here. Sing to me.
Look it deep in the eyes, put your hand on its chest and say, "Bear, I'm not afraid."
Well, that's just dangerous.
If you're in a burning building and smoke is everywhere, keep calm
Take a deep breath and stay right there.
That's not how smoke or fire works.
The show takes so many ideas and just turns them completely on their head. You have this crazy ex-girlfriend, and yeah, a lot of her behaviour is ostensibly not mentally healthy, but you see this very real character who is dealing with her own internal struggle, and she goes through this whole process of being in complete denial about why she is where she is and why she's doing what she's doing, accepting why she's doing what she's doing, and then realising, oh, I need to change. It's also got the most gorgeous array of like additional characters. I mean, Daryl. So the premise of the show is that there is this lawyer called Rebecca Bunch, and she is very stressed. She has a lot of anxiety. She's got a lot of issues from her past, and she bumps into her like teenage first love boyfriend in the street one day and is like, oh my god, he is the last person that made me feel truly happy. Like, that's the last time I felt really just like the world was a good place. Maybe he's the answer to all of my prayers. And she discovers that he has been living in the same city as her, but he's moving back to his childhood home of West Covina, California. And she's like, I'm gonna follow him. And that's what she does. And like I said, not maybe the healthiest of choices, but she is desperately unhappy and she's chasing what last made her feel good about herself and her life, and she's decided it was him. So she gets a job at another law firm, and Daryl is her boss. Daryl is this very awkward guy. He's divorced. He has a daughter who he absolutely adores, but you know, he's just very socially awkward. And there's this most gorgeous storyline where he meets some of Rebecca and Josh's friends, and one of them is a guy also called Josh who is gay, and he and Daryl really click. And one day when he's saying goodbye to Daryl, he kisses him, and Daryl's like, why did you kiss me? And Josh is like, well, because I'm gay and you're cute. And Daryl's like, oh. And he has this huge thing that he has to wrestle with, because he's like, well, I'm a straight guy. I've never wanted to be with a dude, but like, I don't feel unhappy that he's kissed me. I kind of like that he's kissed me. And eventually he realizes that he's bisexual. And he has this realization quite late in life, and he sings an absolute anthem about it, which just celebrates my people.
I'm getting by, and it's something I'd like to demystify. It's not a phase, I'm not confused, not indecisive. I don't have the gotta choose blues. I don't care if you wear high heels or a tie. You might just catch my eye because I'm definitely bi. Big man!
For all its silliness and all the crazy things that happen in the show, I think it's genuinely one of the most accurate and most emotionally raw portrayals of mental health issues I've ever seen.
And when I tried to find the reason for my sadness and terror, all the solutions were trial and error. Take this pill, say this chant, move here for this guy. But now there's no need for regret, 'cause I'm about to get a diagnosis, a diagnosis. Don't tell me no, sister, you don't fit in.
I genuinely, there's an episode in season 3, I think it is, where I was breathless at the end of it, because I was just like, I have never seen anyone portray this so well. It's one of those shows that I could absolutely happily re-binge, like literally now. I could sit here, put Netflix on, and just watch the whole of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, and it would be a flippin' good time. So yeah, my gut reaction, what would be your comfort blanket TV show? Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. When I was a kid, I used to sometimes go and stay with my grandparents in London, and my nan had a few books in drawers that were for children, and I would take them out and read because I have always been quite a voracious reader. One time I was staying there, I looked in the drawer and I took out a book, and it was very old. It was this. What Katie Did by Susan Coolidge. This says Birmingham in it, and my nan and paps are from London, unless I read a different version, like a different copy, and in London, and my other grandparents were like, oh, we have a version she can have. I'm not sure. Anyway, What Katie Did tells the story of a girl called Catherine Carr, or Katie to her friends and family. Now, Katie is a typical kid. She's a little bit mischievous, rambunctious, she gets into trouble, and she has got a little bit of a selfish streak. She kind of just wants to have fun, she doesn't want to take life too seriously, and she likes being the centre of attention. I was quite an outgoing child, but as I got older, I got more and more shy. That's what bullying will do for you. But when I read this book and I saw young Katie, I kind of recognised the kid in a way I wanted to be. I wanted to sort of be more of a leader. I wanted to be somebody who had loads of adventures and was always the one coming up with stories and games for everyone to play. Katie eventually finds this swing. I can't remember if she finds it or makes it. I think she finds it. And they're all swinging on this swing and having a lovely time, except she falls and she has this terrible accident and damages her back to the point that she can't walk. Katie is eventually bedridden and has this really long period of time where she can't do anything, and she really, really struggles. You know, she is essentially a child, so she is angry at the whole world and frustrated, and she lashes out and she gets very angry, and she sort of loses this really fun, playful side that makes her who she is. And eventually she has this cousin called Helen who comes to stay, and Helen is in a wheelchair, and Katie is sort of mind blown by Helen because Helen is in a really similar situation, but she's not angry and she's not frustrated. She isn't lashing out at everybody. She's just really thoughtful and kind and a really nice person. And Katie thinks, well, how can she be like that? I'm so mad that this has happened to me. And Helen sort of teaches her some really important life lessons about how this is the situation you're in and you just have to accept it, make the best of it. By the end of the story, Katie has been able to get out of bed and is learning to walk again and is starting to feel much better. And there is a sequel. In fact, there's a few sequels, I think. But I just remember it had a really profound impact on me when I read it as a child. I was just like, wow, she dealt with all these very human emotions in a way that is really realistic and honest and raw. Because you would feel cheated and you would feel angry. You would want to lash out at the whole world if something like that happened and your whole life just changed overnight. I do remember thinking at one point, because I've reread this book lots of times, there was a point where I did think, oh, she becomes a bit too much of a goody two-shoes by the end. But, you know, maybe they did go a little bit too far that way with it. She still has elements of what made Katie fun in the first place, so I've had this a very long time and it means a lot to me. And finally we come to my comfort blanket album. Now, as we've mentioned many times on this channel, the channel name is Mrs. Mannix, because I love the Manic Street Preachers. So of course it's an album by the Spice Girls. No, it's not, it's a Mannix album. When I was about 13 going on 14, I had a friend whose parents owned a bowling alley, and we used to go to the bowling alley and hang out pretty much every Saturday. I would have free bowling. Quite often I'd get free chips. It was a real good time. And they had a jukebox, like a proper old-fashioned jukebox, and for, I believe it was like 50p back then, you could pick 3 songs, and I pretty much always picked the 3 same songs, which were Someday by Eternal, The Universal by Blur, and A Design for Life by the Manic Street Preachers. important because I wasn't what I would consider a Mannix fan at that time. I just really loved that particular song. It wasn't for another couple of years I really suddenly was like, oh, the Mannix are the best band in the world. But that song was just an anthem. It still is an absolute banger of an anthem. A Design for Life is really indicative of what the whole album is like. Everything Must Go is the sound of a band just going, we are going to break out. Now, Everything Must Go came out after the Mannix had been through probably the most horrendous thing a band can go through. Their member and best friend, because the Mannix had been best friends since childhood. They're not just a band who sort of met at college or got together through an advert in the music press. They'd been best friends since they were children. And Ritchie, who played guitar and wrote a lot of their lyrics for the band and was kind of one of the big mouthpieces of the Mannix, had disappeared. That happened in 1995, and for 27 years we have not known what happened to Ritchie. I genuinely think it's one of the saddest things that could happen to a group. When you lose somebody and they've died, at least you know what's happened to them. There is some level of closure, but with this, it's just always been this blank page that nobody knows how to fill in. Even though they had started working on some of the songs before Ritchie went missing, so the last track has a demo part at the end which supposedly has Ritchie on guitar, and there are lots of songs that use his lyrics. There is this sense of just having been through something absolutely terrible and coming out the other side with this absolute sense of triumph. Like, yes, this has been absolutely awful. We are not going to be beaten by it. We are not going to be broken. We're going to come back stronger than ever. And this is our moment. Even though there are songs with quite melancholy subject matter and lyrics, I'm like, this has just got such a euphoric sound. The strings throughout that album and just the warmth of it, I just want to get my teeth into it and bite it. Yes, that's weird. I remember the first time I listened to the whole album, which was a few years after I used to play A Design for Life on the jukebox, and I just remember thinking, this is probably the most perfect album ever recorded. It's a masterpiece, and it is absolutely the album that I would put on if I needed to listen to something that was just going to make me feel happy and good. It is 100% my comfort blanket album. Thinking about making this video, I asked myself if I was famous enough to be invited onto the podcast, where you can only choose one piece of media to be your comfort blanket and you just talk about that one thing, what would it be? And again, I was like, go with your gut answer, just go with the first thing that comes into your head. And I gotta say, it was Beaches.
That's the story of, that's the glory of love.
But I love everything I've talked about. If I had to only watch one film, one TV show, read one book, and listen to one album for the rest of my days, those are the ones I'd pick. What are your comfort blankets? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up. You can click on my floaty head if you'd like to subscribe, and last week's video is over there. This has been a long one. I'm going to go rest my voice and I'll talk to you next week. Bye!